Okay, so I've been asked this question a lot of times. People ask me, how do you get into the blackness? And that's not really an easy question to answer. When I first started, I kind of experimented a little bit with how I got into the blackness, and I'm going to kind of share some of those tips of how I've gotten into the blackness. I'm sure others of you have many different ways. There's not really one specific way, but I'm going to give you some tips on how. So first of all, just getting into the blackness, it really helps to have some eye shades. Or it's really dark, because if you're trying to imagine blackness and you close your eyes, you can still kind of see light. So that's a big thing to kind of block out the light to kind of help you with that. Another way is, so you're trying to turn off your mind, right? So what do you do when you go to sleep? You close your eyes and you just kind of turn off your mind and you go to sleep. And that's kind of what you're doing. You're doing the same thing. You're trying to get your brain waves down. So you're trying to slow your brain down. I know Dr. Joe will kind of step you through like the body parts. He'll say, imagine your nose and your eyes and different things like that. And yeah, you're supposed to be coming unaware of your body and things, but he's doing that mainly to shut off your mind of distracting thoughts, okay? So just by focusing on your nose, you're not thinking about like work you have to do or what did I do yesterday or something like that. You're just kind of focusing more on your body, so it's kind of placing your attention on yourself and nothing of the outside world really. So another thing that I heard, I believe that Dr. Joe said that maybe in a video one time or something. He was saying, so for example, you're sitting in the living room and then you hear in the next room something fall and break. And so you can transport yourself into that room and you can imagine the kids knocked something over, or you can imagine the cat was up on the shelf and it knocked something down, and that's what you can actually like physically transport yourself from where you're currently at into that room. Or you can even do it like your mom, you know, she's telling a story about how somebody came over and they were in their kitchen doing this and that, and you can mentally, you don't even have to close your eyes and really think about it. You just kind of mentally are thinking, oh, you're imagining your mom in the kitchen and doing stuff at her house. So this is really what you're doing by imagining yourself in space. So I know when I first started out, and I still do it, I imagine myself in outer space. You know, I first started off by imagining like I'm floating above the earth and then there's stars all around and it's just dark and black and there's nothing around. And then, you know, I might see planets. So I tried to like remove the planets because you're really trying to get into blackness. And then it was like, okay, let me remove the stars and try to get into the blackness. I still to this day struggle with it, but the more I do it, I guess you could say the easier it is. I think the hardest part for me is the distracting thoughts that come around. Something else that kind of helps too is, you know, you have like, oh, I've got an itch in my body, or I hear a noise, or different things like that. I kind of focus maybe like right here, like not trying to see with my eyes so much, but kind of right here in your third eye, or maybe put some attention on your pineal gland. Another thing that helps me too is when he does the breath in any of the meditations, it seems to kind of activate something in my head where I'm not really thinking about a lot of stuff. It's just like my head's so full of whatever this energy is that I'm not focused on anything in the outside world. It really kind of gets me connected. So a lot of times I will just do the breath before a meditation if it doesn't have the breath in there, because it does kind of help me shut off my mind and get, I guess you could say, the juices flowing, because that's really kind of what the breath does, is get your juices flowing in your brain. Something else he says a lot of times, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So the distracting thoughts are the really hard part, because let's say you're doing a meditation in the morning, you're like, oh crap, it's trash day, I forgot to take out the trash. You know, you got this thought coming in your head. And so if you're placing your attention on the trash, that's where you're placing your energy. You're not focusing on yourself or your meditation. And so kind of what I do, and I've tried a bunch of different little things to help with those distracting thoughts, is I'll just kind of like imagine a cloud or something off to the side, and I'll kind of put that thought into that cloud and just like kind of push it off to the side, you know, somewhere else. Or, you know, you could be thinking, I'm sure you're like me, you just think of the stupidest things, you know. And so I just, anytime those come, I'll just kind of put them away. Another one I've thought of is like, put in a leaf and have it just fall to the ground, and it's at the ground and I don't need to worry about it. Sometimes there's important things like, oh, I've got a doctor's appointment later, and I'm like, oh, I can't forget about that, or I've got to pay that bill today, you know, and I'm like, I don't want it to distract my meditation. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to forget that, because if I feel if I put it in the cloud, it'll just disappear. So I kind of like put it in a box and then put it to the side so I can remember, okay, go to that box later and open that up and remember whatever that thought was you're trying to think of. So distracting thoughts are really hard to kind of control when you're trying to get in the blackness. I know Dr. Joe has said this several times, that he spent, I don't know, a whole day or something like that, basically, just trying to get into the blackness and shut off his mind. And he would get into the blackness, and anytime a distracting thought came his way, he would start all over again. And he just kept doing it over and over and over and over again until finally he was kind of training his body, and his body was like, okay, okay already, I'll stop thinking all these dumb thoughts. And it finally gave in and got into the blackness. And I think that's kind of what you do the more you meditate and the more you practice getting into the blackness, the easier it is to kind of train your body to just shut off your brain. Now, I know that some of his meditations have a really long part of getting into the blackness, and sometimes I'm just like, okay, 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 and my mind starts wandering, different things like that. But even then, if you do start to wander, just quickly get rid of that thought and get back into thinking of the blackness. Now, the very first time I really got into the blackness was at my first event, and I had never meditated really deep. And it was the first time, I guess you could say, I really got deep. And I was trying to get into the blackness, and next thing I know, I kind of like looked down. Even though my eyes are closed, I looked down, and like my legs aren't there. Like I cannot feel them, and I look down, and I like, you know, when you're in the blackness, you can kind of feel the room you're in and different things like that. But it was like, I looked down and I was like, there was nothing. I was at literally nothing, nowhere, no time, different things like that. And I just started giggling out loud because it was such a cool feeling that I was like, wow, I'm just a pure consciousness right now. So I guess you could say that in a way that's your goal. But now I don't do that every time. I just know that sometimes I just get real deep and I'm not really thinking about where I'm at. Getting in the blackness is really just trying to shut off your mind and get into the void. And oftentimes after he does that, he has you work on, you know, blessing in the energy centers or some kind of thought to tune into or something like that. And so getting into that blackness makes that easier. Really, that's about it, about getting into the blackness. You know, some people can meditate better in the morning, some at night, some in the afternoon. Sometimes maybe at night you can shut your mind off easier, and maybe that's easier to do your meditations then. It's easier to shut your mind off and get into the blackness, but don't get too tired and fall asleep. But just experiment a little bit with different ways that you can kind of get into the blackness, and the more you practice it, the better you can get at it. I can jump right into meditation sometimes, and I'm like, bam, there right away. Other times it's a struggle. So don't think that, oh, wow, I did it yesterday and I can't do it today. Don't get frustrated. It's not something you're going to get every day. I was thinking about it like it's like a recipe. You know, sometimes you just throw this and that and this and that, and you're like, oh, wow, it turned out great. And the next time you make it, you're like, oh, it's not quite right. You know, it's not going to be quite the same every time. So it's kind of the same with this. It's like you're not going to get it every single time. But like I said, the more you do it, the better you'll get at getting into it. You may not get that deep blackness, but you'll get kind of your mind shut off. And that really is kind of the main idea, is to kind of shut off your mind. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. We are over 1,000 subscribers now, and so we are trying to monetize our channel now. And with the money that we make from this channel, we are going to give it back to the community. So we are not in need of anything that we make from this channel, and so we want to give back to you by giving you guys meditations or books or whatever we need to help out. And you know, eventually we'd love to maybe give scholarships for people to go to events or something like that. So please like and subscribe. That'll help us to help you guys. We love you guys very much. Thank you.